The story begins with a rich girl named Esther. She is locked in a heated argument with her mother because her mother wants her to move into the same house with her new husband. But Esther flatly refuses, saying that this man is neither her father nor her family, and that her mother is free to enjoy her new life. But Esther will continue living with the family she considers her own. Her mother then drops a bombshell, warning her that if she is planning to go looking for Yuji and calling him her brother, she should know the truth that he is not her real brother at all, because there is no blood relationship between them. He was adopted. This revelation hits Esther like an electric shock. Still, instead of backing down, she becomes even more determined to find him. She learns that Yuji is in Thailand, so she books a ticket from China to Thailand and sets off in search of him. As she travels, she drifts into flashbacks of their childhood. Esther and Yuji grew up together, sharing the same home, the same routines, and the same innocent bond, without her ever knowing that he was adopted. Their lives once felt perfect, and they were deeply attached to each other. But everything changed when their parents divorced and the family shattered. Esther went with her mother, while Yuji stayed with their father, and over the years, they completely lost contact. She often wondered what kind of man he had become, remembering how intelligent and studious he was, how he used to push her to focus on her studies and writing. The story then cuts to Yuji's present life, which is the exact opposite of what Esther imagined. His life is harsh and dangerous. He works as an underground fighter and participates in illegal racing, constantly gambling with his life just to earn money. On the very day he finishes a brutal fight, he gets a call from his father, who is completely drunk and tells him that he cannot go himself, so Yuji must go to the airport to pick up Esther because her mother has called. Meanwhile, Esther stands at Bangkok airport, filled with excitement and nervous curiosity, wondering what Yuji looks like now and when she will finally meet him. But the moment they come face to face, her excitement evaporates. She is stunned by his appearance. His face is covered in scars. He looks like someone who has just walked out of a fight, and his car, though cheap, is heavily modified for racing. After years of separation, this is not at all the reunion she had imagined, and her expectations collapse faster than a house of cards in a storm. She goes with him in his car and keeps staring at him, and he asks what she is looking at. She asks if he completed his education, and he casually replies that he dropped out in high school. Another shock lands immediately. As if that were not enough, a boy on a heavy bike pulls up, looking reckless and wild, calls Yuji by the nickname Brandy, and jokingly asks if Esther is his new girlfriend. For Esther, this is overwhelming. She starts thinking about the kind of people he hangs out with and the world he lives in. Yet, despite everything, she still feels a strange sense of familiarity and warmth around him. Yuji buys her a drink, strawberry-flavored, and she suddenly remembers how they used to pick strawberries together as children. What surprises her even more is that Yuji still remembers that strawberries are her favorite. Her next shock arrives when she sees where he lives. The building is old, the apartment looks shady, and by the time she climbs to the 5th or 6th floor, she is practically gasping for air. Inside, she finds their father passed out drunk, which seems to be his daily routine, while Yuji is the one holding the household together. There is also Yuji's new wife from Thailand and a younger sister named Shin. One look at Shin makes it clear that she is not going to accept Esther easily. Somehow, Esther swallows everything silently and sits down for dinner. Yuji still remembers every detail of her likes and dislikes. Together with their mother, he prepares dumplings exactly the way she likes them and personally serves her, giving her a larger portion. When Shin asks why Esther got more food, he replies that she is a guest. Hearing the word guest feels like someone quietly punched a hole through Esther's heart, because she came here thinking of them as family, not as strangers with formal labels. Later, one of Yuji's friends arrives and talks to him downstairs. Esther overhears parts of the conversation and realizes that Yuji might be about to take on a dangerous task that could risk his life. She gives him a gift she brought, which he accepts politely but without warmth. He does not share memories, joy, or stories, yet it becomes clear that she still lives in his heart exactly the way he lives in hers. His keychain carries engravings that reflect the meaning of Esther's name, just as her presence is engraved on his heart. That night, wanting to spend more time together, Esther pretends to be hungry and suggests a late-night meal. Yuji takes her out to a slum-like area. As they walk, a speeding bike nearly crashes into them, and he instinctively pulls her close to protect her. The situation feels different now because they both know they are not real siblings anymore. Eventually, they reach a food court. Yuji tells her to choose whatever she wants to eat, and she decides to pick food from the busiest stall. He orders for her, and she is shocked again because it is exactly what she likes. He remembers every tiny detail about her preferences. He then tells her to sleep early because he will drop her at the airport the next day. He has already checked her return ticket, and her flight is scheduled for the following day. Esther again feels bad and admits that she only booked the ticket to escape her mother and that she is canceling it right now. Slowly, she tries to talk to him about his life and the dangerous task he mentioned earlier. His mood darkens immediately. He reaches for a cigarette but stops because of her presence and tells her to stay out of his business. At that moment, the same friend, Salai, arrives and starts teasing him, calling Esther the car girl girlfriend and mocking him for liking younger girls. Yuji firmly says that she is his sister, but Salai laughs it off, pointing out that their faces and expressions do not match at all, and it is obvious they are not blood-related. He then starts talking about Yuji's fights and warns him that if he keeps hanging out with girls like this and Sneaky finds out, things will turn ugly. Hearing this, Esther freezes and asks who Sneaky is, wondering if she is Yuji's girlfriend. Just then, Mafia girl Sneaky's men suddenly arrived at the spot. They were looking specifically for Yuji and wanted to extract money from him. They grabbed him and tried to beat him up, but Yuji immediately held Esther's hand, fought them skillfully, and made sure not even a scratch reached her before escaping with her. Esther had never witnessed such a rough and dangerous lifestyle before, yet strangely, she found herself enjoying the thrill of racing through the streets on his speeding bike. It was terrifying, reckless, and wildly unsafe, but she felt oddly calm simply because Yuji was beside her. She thought about how she had imagined their first reunion 100 different ways, but never once had she imagined it would involve gangsters, fists, and a getaway that looked straight out of a crime documentary. As they drove, childhood memories flooded her mind. She remembered the day they were separated, when Yuji had handed her a pen and casually remarked that her writing was terrible, adding that the next time they met, he would check if she had improved. She truly had worked hard since then, focusing on her studies and writing only so she could face him proudly one day. She had written him countless letters over the years, pouring her heart into every word, but not a single reply ever came. Eventually, disappointment had settled deep inside her. Soon after, it becomes clear that Yuji is badly trapped in his circumstances. His father, being drunk most of the time, was an easy target and had been kidnapped. The kidnappers demanded money in exchange for his release. Yuji handed over everything he had and begged them to let his father go. At that moment, the same girl Sneaky confronted him, complaining that she had spent a fortune on makeup, prepared a lavish dinner, and bought expensive clothes for him, yet he had not even looked at her properly. He glanced at her briefly and asked if she was satisfied now, saying he wanted to leave. She replied that if he truly wanted to leave with his father, he would have to spend time with her, dine with her, and give her attention. Yuji refused flatly, saying she could keep his father if she wanted, but he would never belong to her. His heart had never been vacant for anyone else, because someone else's name had been etched there long ago, and that name was obviously Esther. The next day, Esther learns that Yuji rarely stays at home. His stepmother comments that he only comes back when there is work to be done. Hearing this, a mischievous idea sparks in Esther's mind. She deliberately breaks the water heater so there would be an excuse to call Yuji home. However, Shin witnesses this little act and immediately realizes that something suspicious is going on with her elder sister's behavior. Still, Esther and Shin are secretly delighted because, thanks to the broken heater, Yuji does come home and tries to fix the pipe. He had grown into someone tall, muscular, and undeniably handsome, and she stood there watching him until he asked what she was staring at. She lied smoothly, saying she was checking how strong the sunlight was, which made absolutely no sense, but somehow still sounded confident enough to pass. Unfortunately, her innocent sabotage came at a cost. The heater could not be repaired at all and needed a complete replacement, which meant a heavy expense. Yuji said he had work to do and was leaving immediately, and Esther instantly understood that he was heading toward the same dangerous task that threatened his life. She quickly grabbed a taxi and started following him. He drove through strange alleys and slum-like areas unfamiliar to her, but she stayed right behind him. At the very last moment, he turned around and caught her. She laughed awkwardly and pretended it was a coincidence, claiming she was just sightseeing and doing some casual tourism. Yuji handed her some money and told her to shop freely, but strictly warned her not to follow him again. After that, he disappeared, leaving Esther staring into empty streets. While passing through the area in a ferry, Esther spots Yuji's friend Salai. She asks him if he knows where Yuji might be at this time. Salai confirms that he does, and Esther claims she has an appointment there too. He asks if she is sure she wants to see what is about to happen, and then takes her along. There, a heavy betting scene is underway, centered around a brutal underground fight. Yuji's opponent is a reigning champion, a deadly fighter, and people are genuinely afraid that Yuji might not survive this match. The person who has placed a major bet on Yuji is a highly influential individual named Lin, who believes Yuji is destined to change history by defeating this monster of a fighter. When the match begins, Yuji performs well, but the fight is evenly matched. He takes severe blows, and the first round ends in a draw. Somehow Salai manages to bribe their way inside, allowing Esther to enter. She is confused, asking what kind of place this is and where Yuji is. The moment she sees him in the ring, she freezes. She screams desperately, begging for the match to stop, terrified that Yuji's life could be destroyed. But her voice is swallowed by the roaring crowd. At one critical point, Yuji is beaten so badly that he barely manages to stand. Amid the chaos, he hears a voice that feels hauntingly familiar. He opens his eyes and sees Esther standing there. In that instant, something inside him reignites, as if life itself rushes back into his body. He turns around and overwhelms his opponent with such force that everyone is left stunned. Then he leaps out of the ring, grabs Esther's hand, and runs, shielding her as if he refuses to let even the shadow of danger touch her. Outside, Esther breaks down in tears, questioning why his life has become so dangerous and begging him never to do something like this again. She tells him how important he is. Yuji puts her in the car and drives away. On the way, Esther finally pours her heart out, confessing that even if she is just a childhood friend to him, he means everything to her. Her entire life revolves around him. She reveals that she left everything behind in China just to find him, never accepting her mother's new life or her new husband. She talks about all the letters she wrote and how none were answered. She even wrote her new address and contact details on the wall of their old house, hoping he might come looking for her one day. But she was always met with disappointment. She mentions the fountain pen she gifted him, believing it symbolized glory, though now she feels it probably holds no meaning for him anymore. When he still says nothing, the silence becomes unbearable. She tells him she will give him one last trouble and asks him to drop her at the airport the next day, because if he does not want to talk to her, she would rather leave. At that moment, Yuji tells her to sit tight because someone is following them and he needs to maneuver the car carefully to escape. Esther sat beside him in the car while Yuji drove at full speed, constantly dodging the people chasing them. At this point, a flashback reveals that he had opened Esther's gift earlier. He had unwrapped it gently, seen the pen inside, and been overwhelmed by memories from their childhood. But no matter how much it meant to him, he was trapped by circumstances. His life had never been normal. It had always been a gamble with danger, and now his opponent had even sent his own men after him to capture him. With no choice left, Yuji was once again forced into racing. He suddenly asked Esther if she remembered what a navigator was. This triggered another memory. His father had once been a racer too, just like him, and Esther often sat beside him as his navigator when they were children. Yuji told her to unlock his phone, look at the destination, and guide him through the route. From that moment on, he declared her his partner and navigator. With her directions and his skills, they left their pursuers far behind because neither Yuji's driving nor his modified engine could be matched. That very day, a racing event was already scheduled, but Yuji was not supposed to participate because of his fight earlier. Yet, he ended up entering the race anyway. Several opponents tried to block and crash into him, but the coordination between Yuji and Esther was so seamless that, as a navigator, she guided him perfectly. They understood each other without words and ended up winning the race effortlessly. For Esther, this was an entirely new experience. But because Yuji was with her, she trusted both him and herself. The prize money was hanging openly in cash form, and Yuji reached it first. He asked Esther to hold the steering wheel while he grabbed the winnings. Finally, they reached their destination, where people cheered loudly because Yuji was the winner. Everyone was surprised that he had shown up despite saying he would miss the race, and he casually explained that Lin's people had forced him to come. Before stepping out, he told Esther to stay close and not panic, assuring her that although all of this was new to her, he would handle everything. The locals questioned who the girl was, saying outsiders were not allowed. Yuji immediately corrected them, telling them not to call her an outsider. Esther assumed he would introduce her as his sister, but instead, to her surprise, he declared that she was his girlfriend and that he had brought her along to clear her doubts about his late-night disappearances. Hearing this, Esther started shivering, not from fear alone, but because reality had just taken a sharp left turn she was not emotionally insured for. His opponent then approached, greeted Esther as the navigator, and asked if she would work for him instead, even inquiring about her price. Yuji shut him down instantly, stating that she was priceless. Overwhelmed, Esther began trembling from the cold, and Yuji hugged her to keep her warm. Everything felt surreal to her because she never imagined that they would act like a couple so openly in front of everyone. After leaving the crowd behind, Esther confronted him, saying he was risking his life just for money and that money was not more important than his life. This time, Yuji finally snapped. His patience gave way, and he poured out his entire story, one filled with pain. After the divorce, his father brought him there and rented a basement. Whenever it rained, the basement flooded, soaking his books, his bed, and everything else. Hunger was a constant, school fees became impossible, and whatever little money they had was lost by his father to fraud. He continued, explaining that his father later remarried, and his new wife had a daughter named Shin, who suffered from a serious heart condition and required surgery. He had to choose between funding her treatment or continuing his education. When hunger dominates your life, education simply does not survive. He bitterly asked how Esther could ever understand this pain when her mother had even changed her surname from Jin to Jiang, giving her a different identity altogether. Hearing all of this, Esther's anger completely melted away. She calmed down and asked him to promise that he would never take such dangerous risks again. She begged him to come with her, offering him shelter, a home, and support. She insisted they return to China, to their old house where they once lived together. She promised to take care of him while he completed his studies, find part-time work, and rebuild their lives together, just like before, never to be separated again. Yuji gave no response. He did not want to return home, and Esther stubbornly stayed with him. When she woke up early the next morning, she learned that Yuji had received a call because her mother was also in the same city and wanted to see her. He drove her to the hotel but lacked the courage to step inside and greet her, choosing instead to drive away. Inside the hotel, Esther met her mother and her new husband, only for her mother to drop yet another bombshell. She revealed plans to sell their house in China and settle in Canada with her new husband. She had even selected a postgraduate university for Esther there. Esther refused outright, saying she would not go to Canada and wanted to stay in China. She warned her mother not to be deceived and begged her to keep at least one property for herself. This upset the new husband, who stood up and left. At that moment, Yuji appeared nearby, but overheard enough to turn around and leave. He finally understood that Esther's mother never liked him and still considered him an outsider, because her mother insisted Esther stay away from him because he was neither her real brother nor her cousin. Esther's mother coldly remarked that she had always known he would never become a gentleman, pointing out his appearance, his car, and his lifestyle. She admitted that Yuji had tried many times to contact Esther, but she had always scolded him and told him to stay away. This revelation left Esther completely stunned. Just the previous night, she had accused Yuji of never responding to her letters, unaware that he had tried repeatedly and had been shut down every single time by her own mother. Esther's mother reminded her to be on time in the evening because it was their return flight, but Esther refused and walked away. Once back home, she stormed into Yuji's room, venting her frustration there, when she suddenly discovered all the letters she had written to him, carefully hidden. He had preserved every single one of them, and not only that, on the envelopes, he had even drawn little sketches in response, as if answering her silently all these years. Seeing this, Esther finally understood that just as she had considered Yuji her closest person and missed him every moment of her life, he had held the exact same feelings for her. He had missed her throughout his life too, and the true reason they were separated lay in their parents' divorce and later her mother's interference, who had actively stopped Yuji from contacting her. Esther realized she had unloaded all her anger on him, while he had endured everything without uttering a single word of complaint. On the other side, Yuji was at his garage, which he owned himself. He modified cars there and often stayed there overnight, barely returning home. Esther sat crying, unsure where to even begin looking for him, so she asked Shin if she could tell her where her brother might be. The moment Shin saw her tears, she gave her the address. Esther followed it and eventually reached the garage. Yuji was shocked to see her there and said she was supposed to have returned that day, but she had not gone back with her mother. She stood silently, watching the clock. As soon as it struck 12, she wished him a happy birthday, saying this was something that had been missing for many years. Yuji's eyes filled with tears as childhood memories flooded back. How once, while celebrating Esther's birthday, she had asked when his birthday was, and he had not known the answer. From then on, every time Esther's birthday was celebrated, his was celebrated alongside hers as well. In fact, it was Esther's birthday that day. He wished her too and took her out to eat cake, reopening a shop just to buy her favorite strawberry cake. When she cut the cake, she made 2 wishes silently. One, that they would someday know Yuji's real birthday, because a birthday holds deep meaning in a person's life, and the second, that they would never be separated again. He had even brought beer to celebrate, but Esther admitted she wanted to drink yet could not handle it well. Yuji reassured her, telling her not to worry because he was there to take care of her, declaring her the birthday princess of the day. After drinking, she became emotional, pouring out everything in her heart and crying openly. She shared her fear that her mother planned to sell their old house and that she was more worried about her mother than herself, suspecting that the new husband might deceive her. Yuji gently reminded her that after so many years, if her mother had chosen someone, she must have done so thoughtfully. Esther then expressed her long-held resentment, saying he always referred to her as her mother's daughter and never fully accepted their blood relationship. Midway through her emotional outpouring, she suddenly experienced severe stomach pain. It turned out she had started her period. She had no supplies, but Yuji understood immediately without her saying a word and rushed to the store to buy everything she needed. He asked her to take a hot shower and rest, laying out his clothes for her. No one had ever been allowed to even sit on his bed before, yet she was the first person he permitted to use his room while he moved to his friend's room next door. Her condition worsened, so he searched online and showed her pressure points for relief. When she couldn't figure it out, he massaged her himself. He stayed by her side, gently fanning her as she slept, watching her with care while she sweated from the pain. He looked less like a street racer and more like a confused but determined nurse who had forgotten to clock out. As he watched her, memories returned of the day Esther was about to be born, the same time Esther's father had adopted Yuji after his own racing driver father passed away in an accident. Her mother had strongly opposed the adoption and even tried to send him to boarding school, but young Esther had been so attached to him that she spoke her first words calling his name when he was about to leave. With these memories lingering, morning arrived, and Yuji prepared a healthy breakfast for her, but at the same time, his friends showed up, and he warned them not to step inside because someone special was sleeping deeply. When Esther later came out, one of the friends was struggling with an engine issue. Having grown up watching her father work with engines, she instantly identified the problem and corrected it. The 2 boys were stunned that Yuji had allowed a girl to stay with him, wondering who she was and why she seemed so special, until Yuji chased them away and told Esther to go inside and change into something longer. She sat ready for breakfast. Yuji, hardened by difficult circumstances, had learned to cook well, whereas Esther could barely manage cooking at all. She stubbornly picked out carrots, secretly trying to avoid them, but Yuji appeared behind her. His stare alone was enough. Terrified, she ate the carrots despite herself, proving that sometimes fear works better than seasoning. Meanwhile, the same Lin from Boxing Ring was introduced, a top car racer who loved racing and modified cars. One day, someone had overtaken and defeated him on the road, leaving him deeply shaken. Lin was shocked, trying to figure out who could have modified that car so perfectly. In reality, it was none other than Yuji himself. But Lin had not been able to see his face clearly. He had only caught a brief glimpse. Still, he sent his men after him, determined that if they couldn't identify the racer, they must at least find the person who modified the car, even if it meant searching the entire city. Lin was, in fact, already looking for Yuji. One day, Wan's men arrived at Yuji's garage. Among them was Jung, the same man Yuji had fought in wrestling earlier, and today he was clearly here to settle the score for his humiliation. He kept calling out Brandy, while Yuji's friends claimed that he had gone shopping in the market. But Jung and his men were not the type to remain calm. They were about to damage one of the cars when Esther suddenly appeared upstairs and struck one of them so fast and so hard that he didn't even realize what had happened to him. The men mocked them, asking whether they had now started hitting women too. But Jung focused on Esther because she threatened to live stream everything. As soon as he raised his hand, Yuji arrived, right on cue, like a hero who refuses to be late. He beat Jung badly, and this time it was clear that the fight had become personal for him. They fought for quite a while, causing major damage inside the garage until Esther announced she was calling the police. Hearing that, the men finally retreated. After they left, Yuji and his friends began fixing the damage. That's when Esther seized the opportunity and approached San, the most talkative among them, the kind of person who unknowingly spills secrets if you let him speak long enough. He ended up telling her everything that Yuji had once worked at Wan's garage. His business had been doing well, but after some conflict, Yuji had started on his own. Ever since then, Wan's people regularly came to cause trouble. San also spoke about Yuji's school days, mentioning which high school he attended. He hadn't been able to study much, but he had been extremely capable and very handsome. Girls used to secretly line up just to see him, and he was so tall that he was always asked to clean the windows. Esther listened carefully and then asked who had introduced him to street racing and underground fighting. At that question, San immediately covered his mouth and ran away, clearly unwilling to answer. Esther then started helping them with work. When she struggled to lift something heavy, she insisted that no one underestimate her just because she was a girl. Yuji calmly told her that if she couldn't lift it, she could at least help by carrying screws instead. Meanwhile, Lin finally got a clue as someone had shared a photo of a pickup truck. Even with limited detail, its modifications were unmistakable. Lin traced it to San's pet house. Entering the shop, he casually asked whether San was a customer and what he wanted to buy. When Lin said he wanted a car, San began showing pet strollers. Lin snapped, asking whether San thought he was stupid, pointing out that the car parked outside was the one he wanted, and demanding to meet the person who modified it. San immediately realized someone had tracked Yuji down. Cleverly, he distracted Lin, offering hints in exchange for shopping sprees and even a premium card for the pet house. In the end, Lin suspected that the pet house itself was a cover and that San might actually be the racer since he had only seen a side profile. San, delighted by the attention, proudly declared himself the legendary racer of Chinatown. Lin agreed to set up a meeting later and left. The moment he was gone, San rushed to Yuji and told him someone had been searching for him, impressed by both his racing and his car modifications. San explained that the man thought San was the racer and had asked to meet him. Yuji replied that he didn't personally know this Lin person, only his name, but warned San that the invitation was not just a meeting, it was a racing challenge. Hearing this, San's legs nearly gave out. Yuji then took him for a ride in the racing car, driving so wildly that San felt like he was on a roller coaster rather than in a car. Surprisingly, San began enjoying it and asked Yuji to teach him racing skills, an ambition that was far ahead of his actual talent. Meanwhile, a girl named Nana is introduced to the story as she is a fortune teller who reads cards. Sneaky also visited her because she wants Yuji, and Nana's predictions turned out to be accurate, which made Sneaky stick close to her. Nana was also Esther's friend. They had met on the flight and quickly bonded. Since Nana lived there, Esther asked her to take her to Yuji's old school. Nana had studied there too and guided her through the campus. Esther noticed Yuji's photo displayed on a board for his achievements as a sportsman. Although he had achieved a lot, he had never completed his studies. Nana compared their names and pointed out that their meanings resembled the moon and the sun, always powerful together. When Esther returned, she saw Yuji smoking and effortlessly snatched the cigarette from him, telling him that he didn't know this, but she had learned Tai Chi after he left. San then arrived, saying he was practicing driving and asked Yuji to come along. Yuji declined, being busy with a special meeting, and allowed Esther to go with San instead, mainly because he didn't want her following him. Before going into Yuji's room, Esther checked the supplies he had bought for her and found extra items added by the shopkeeper to raise the bill. It was something only a couple use. Yuji hadn't noticed, but Esther misunderstood and assumed he might have a girlfriend. While riding with San, she casually asked whether there was a woman in Yuji's life. San replied that girls were always around him, but he had never seen Yuji give special attention to anyone. But there was one thing San knew for sure. Once, Yuji had gone shopping at the night market, and what he bought was clearly an ornament meant for a woman. San did not know whom Yuji had given it to, but he was certain of one thing, that Yuji genuinely loved someone with all his heart. Hearing this left Esther both troubled and intensely curious. Meanwhile, Yuji had gone to meet someone regarding a racing match, though the identity of that man was deliberately kept hidden from view. At the same time, Esther stood beside San when Yuji sent her a voice note, giving her detailed training instructions on how to drive properly. San, however, possessed absolutely no talent for such things and could not understand a single word of what Yuji was trying to explain. Esther, on the other hand, understood it perfectly. As she listened, childhood memories resurfaced because her father had performed similar racing stunts, and by watching and listening to him over the years, she had absorbed more knowledge than she ever realized. She tried explaining everything to San, but when he still failed to grasp it, she took his place and sat in the driver's seat herself. On her very first attempt, she performed impressively, though a couple of mistakes were inevitable since she had never done this before. Soon, she asked San to step out and began practicing on her own. The task was difficult, yet she executed it remarkably well, and watching herself succeed made her feel that perhaps it truly was her father's blood running through her veins. Just then, Nana arrived to meet her, reminding her of the party she had promised to take her to that day. Esther went along with her, and the party turned out to be grand, a cousin's birthday celebration. The two of them enjoyed themselves immensely. In the middle of the party, Yuji called Esther, but she rejected the call. After what she had seen at his house that morning, she had convinced herself that he might have a girlfriend. She shared her confusion with Nana, admitting that she liked a boy, but doubted whether another woman existed in his life. Nana advised her that if she had doubts, she should clear them, and that there was only one universal way to test it. She suggested getting close to another guy, laughing and enjoying herself with him, because jealousy would naturally awaken if Yuji truly had feelings for her. If jealousy appeared, it meant love. If not, then there was no interest. Esther asked whom she was supposed to get close to, and Nana replied that it had to be someone equally handsome and impressive. At that very moment, Nana's cousin arrived, and it was none other than Lin. Nana enthusiastically pointed him out and encouraged Esther to get closer to him, promising to take a photo. She did exactly that, and by sheer coincidence, the angle of the photograph made it look extremely intimate. Nana was thrilled, sent the photo to Esther, and urged her to send it to Yuji immediately. Esther did so, then deleted it shortly afterward, claiming it had been sent by mistake. Nana had already tossed the spark into the fire. The moment Yuji saw the photo, he became restless. He asked for the location and demanded Nana's number from San. Esther, following Nana's instructions, had already turned off her phone. They wanted to see how far his desperation would take him. At the party, Nana was cautiously hiding because Sneaky's men had arrived, intending to take her away for fortune-telling. Esther left Nana and went inside, where she encountered the same racing opponent who had earlier wanted her as his navigator. He bluntly stated that she was not Yuji's real girlfriend, claiming he had figured it out from her expressions long ago. Esther, being both innocent and curious, began asking him about Yuji's racing history and brand reputation. In exchange, he suggested having a drink together. He ordered a cocktail, and the moment Esther took a sip, her condition rapidly deteriorated. Her vision blurred, rashes spread across her body, and she nearly lost consciousness. Thankfully, just before she collapsed, Lin arrived and carried her away. By then, Yuji had also reached the party. He managed to locate Nana and demanded that she take him to Esther immediately. Meanwhile, Lin had taken the unconscious Esther to his home for treatment when Yuji suddenly arrived.